You're in the place where mysteries and the missing meet, where conspiracies lurk around every corner. Welcome to the Deep, Dark Truth.
Welcome back to the Deep, Dark Truth. I'm Mikey.
I'm Chip.
And I'm Mo.
So a few of you may have listened to the Blood series back in October of last year, where we covered part 1 and part 2 on Elizabeth Bathory, the Hungarian Countess, and the Vampire Rapist. So now we are on to part 3. Our third contender in the Blood series takes us back to the 1400s. Tales and published books would describe his cruel acts and become bestsellers in European territories where Germanic language was spoken. In Russian, his stories of his acts, punishments, and cruel regime would be adopted and hold similar views by most Romanian historians. Bram Stoker would create a literary vampire named after him, which still to this day is a household name all over the globe, appears in kids' TV shows, and has a cereal named after him. Today we shall visit the life and story of Vlad the Impaler, or Vlad the Third.
You know him. You love him.
Do we love him?
We clearly do, as we just demonstrated. We have cereal because of it.
That did sound a very fangirly, like, oh my god, so get this. Dracula's named after him. He has a cereal. It's a big fucking deal. Sesame Street the Count, 1 bat, 2 bat, 3 bats. An absolute legend. All right.
So, Vlad the Third, commonly known as Vlad the Impaler or Vlad Dracula. To this day, he is still considered a national hero to Romania as...
Hero?
Yeah.
We do love him.
Yeah, it just depends on where you want to go with this. It's crazy. So he was a Voivode of Wallachia 3 times between 1448 and 1477.
Can you break down what that means?
So Wallachia, basically discussion, like real quick, the southern Carpathian Mountains and the Danube River is where we're talking about, which was Wallachia in 1330 and Moldavia and then later Romania.
Okay.
So this is all, present day Romania, but obviously much earlier before. So long family lines of like Basarab, Dynasty, and Draculesti, which I'm sure you could guess is his family bloodline. Only like 7 to 8 different family names appear over like 500 years of ruling in this region. It's kind of crazy. Like it's just handed down and handed down and handed down. So, background, his father was named Vlad Dracul, or Vlad II, and was ruler of Wallachia in 1436. Mercia was his eldest brother, who interestingly enough was not named Vlad III. I found that bizarre. Isn't it usually the oldest?
Yeah, that
is
takes
named
on
after?
Yeah,
the
but,
name.
And Radu was his youngest brother. The 2 youngest brothers were held hostage in the Ottoman Empire in 1442 in order to secure their father's loyalty to the crown.
Classic.
Yeah, classic in this time was not crazy, was not thought of harshly. They took care of the children, but they were still a hostage. A Hungary governor would invade in 1447, killing both Mercia and Vlad II. He would replace Vlad with his second cousin, Vladislav, the second.
It's like I made up a name if I wanted a fake Romanian name at the time.
Yeah. So his second cousin, Vladislav II, as the new Voivode. It's a lot. I know. So right off the bat, father and older brother gets murdered.
Classic.
This Hungarian governor, Hunyadi, would invade the Ottomans in 1448 with Vladislav by his side. Hungary and the Turks were obviously on different sides of things, and there was this Romanian aspect. There's just so much going on from all different angles. Game of Thrones, if you will. During this time, Vlad would disappear and is now confirmed by historians, but only like recently, like 2018, did they confirm that he was imprisoned in Castle Corvin by Hunyadi.
Huh.
So he was in prison for quite a long time. And most didn't know that because it was new and they like completely like stamped in stone of where he was at because it was kind of a mystery and debated.
What year did his reign start?
3 different times he was. The answer is it's complicated. So it was from a time period of 1448 to 1477.
I just really like to put things in conceptual time periods that people understand. The Renaissance era started in 1453. So this is the beginning of the Renaissance.
This is a lot of bloodline, a lot of houses. This is Game of Thrones, basically, in the center of the world where the most population was. It was reported that relations between Vladislav, the new ruler, and Hunyadi, the Hungarian governor, deteriorated. Vlad obviously took opportunity of this. In 1456, he would be set free, so he was in jail for 8 years, and invade with the support of the Hungarian Hunyadi.
Vlad is freed, and Vlad invades with the help
of the guy who freed him, his second cousin.
Cousins, of course they are.
To take back his rightful seat.
And Hungary helps them.
Correct. With the support of Hungary.
Okay.
In that battle, Vladislav was killed.
Okay. Oh no. Not Vladislav. He's my favorite character thus far.
Remember what happened with Zadok? Just was said once and never mentioned again. So don't.
So he's put back onto the seat of power. At this time, there was Wallachian boyars, is what they were called. And they held a lot of political power in the region. So they were basically a mix of Wallachian and Moldavian bloodlines. Prominent bloodlines that weren't on the throne, but basically held a lot of political power and seat and riches, obviously, and influence. This is where Vlad shows his sneaky trickery side of things. As part of this revenge, he held an Easter party in Targovista in 1457, and that's basically like the capital fortress stronghold of his empire per se. Not very big, but still an empire. He would invite all the Wallachian boyars and citizens of Wallachia to this huge feast and dining for Easter.
Uh-oh. This feels like the Red Wedding already. You kept saying Game of Thrones, and now the Red Wedding is just... I can hear the Reigns of Castamere. They're playing in my head right now through this whole scene. I'm painting a word picture. All right.
He would invite all the Wallachian boyars and citizens, and so he is quoted to speak of how many princes there has been in this empire, in this regime, over the years, and would blame the boyars for their copious amounts of rulers that they've had.
And then...
kind of nonchalantly. Like, you know what I mean? Like, basically saying it, but not saying it.
The shade of the 1400s.
They continue to, then, feast and everyone's dressed to the nines. The biggest feast ever, Easter. He just became, whatever. And then, as soon as they were done with their plates.
Oh, dear.
The Reigns of Castamere is playing.
All right. So soon as they're done eating their dinner and they're full, they are completely circled by all of Vlad's men.
Why didn't he just poison them? They were all eating dinner together. He tells
That's not how he does it. Just wait. You just wait.
It's messy. This is a messy bitch, and I can't respect it.
It's not messy. He wanted them to be full and satisfied before he completely... So they encircle them, but not just them, their wives and children as well. They were led outside the castle, basically to a massive impaling. The women and the men were impaled before, in front of their able-bodied children, and then the children were manacled and marched northward. And it was if they were abled, because if they were not abled, they were impaled.
So that's why they really didn't poison them.
Imagine this. He's doing this in front of the entire everyone.
Well, they're all dead now. He's not doing it in front of anyone now.
Well, if anyone wants to come for him and his new throne, they ain't doing it. Not with that display. That is the display of instilling fear.
People are going to find out about it later. But the reason he doesn't poison the food, in my opinion, is because the kids would have eaten them and he, eaten the food, and he obviously wants them for his armies. So he can't just poison everyone because that's not advantageous enough. He needs to get something else out of it, too.
How many kids are we talking about here? Is this 100 or 5? Because
that's true.
It's also just, I want to eat the tasty food and not poison myself.
From what I understand, there was quite a bit of Wallachia boyars. I mean, it is 2 different genetic family bloodlines that have been in this region. It was
not
quite
anymore.
a bit. Well,
people are just popping out children like they were Advil, so I just assumed that there'd be a fuck ton of kids.
There is some background that most people don't know that kind of sheds it in a different light. Not saying it's justified in any way, shape, or form, or he was justified.
Yeah.
In any way,
Disclaimer. Okay.
But the Boyers were directly to blame for the invasion and the direct dethroning and beheading of his father and brother.
Just because they started shit?
So it was
revenge.
Yeah, revenge. So that was part of it. And also, I guess he's like, I'll impale them and get a cool nickname out of it. And no one will fuck with me ever again. Because nobody's going to fuck with some dude named the Impaler.
And the weird thing is that Dracula is, it means dragon in the language in this time that it was.
Makes sense.
So it was basically, and if anyone messes with us dragons, they're going to regret it. His father was part of some dragon house clan that he got into. You have to get into some way.
Who wasn't a dragon clan, though?
I don't know. It was weird.
All of the UK. Everyone over there.
And yet no one had dragons.
So not only did it, there was revenge to it, but it was also military genius at the time, because this would strengthen his position, his political power, his influence in the entire region, and also gain access to Puneri Castle, which would later become what is known as Dracula's castle in real life.
Let's streamline this hierarchy of power.
He basically took all of their fortresses, their house, their money, their everything. It erased them completely and took all their wealth and all their fortresses and all their castles.
This is very efficient. I support the efficiency.
Yeah, but it's Game of Thrones. You weren't kidding.
Yeah, it's Game of Thrones. It's eat or beans.
Because this is so far removed in the past, we are treating this as if it was a Game of Thrones episode. I don't think that we necessarily should be, but if somebody did that in Game of Thrones, you would be like, yeah, that was pretty badass. Like, that was good. He took all their shit.
And this is in this particular instance, the royal people killing the semi-royal people, who have all gotten many a peasant killed. Thousands and thousands of peasants dead for these guys. So I'm fine with these specific people.
Around this time period and shortly after or during, he would also come into conflict with the Transylvanian Saxons at the time, who were supporting Dan and Basarab Leota, which were Vladislav's brothers. So his other cousins.
His other cousin, Dr. Frankenfurter, the sweet transvestite from Transylvania.
They were gaining support from the Transylvanian Saxons to maybe take back their seed and avenge their brother, and whatever. So,
as you do,
he would invade them, loot and plunder the Saxon villages, capturing the people and marching them to Wallachia.
See, now we're on the villagers and the generic people. This is where it's not as cool.
So they marched them all the way back to Wallachia, and then, I don't know if you guessed it, massive impaling.
Classic Vlad, back on his shit.
Get the girl a prize. Like, the way that if you could have all just seen Mikey and this weird finger gun thing he did.
I know, but I could see it in your face.
Don't appropriate my finger guns.
Oh. Later in this area, around 1460, peace between the Wallachians and the Saxons obviously achieved. There's still,
I wouldn't call the word peace, but okay.
A tentative Cold War between them.
Yeah. I think he was just trying to get the supporters out and didn't want to completely slaughter them, but I don't know. Who knows what he was thinking. The Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II, which is kind of where his notoriety comes from and all this, he would order Vlad to pay him homage to him personally and to the empire. Ordered it and decreed it that he needed to pay homage to him.
I don't know what happens, but I'm guessing it's not going to go well for that guy. Just shot in the dark.
Yeah, at this time, the Ottoman Empire was the largest empire on the planet. It was huge.
And they will continue to be a powerhouse. Don't count out the Ottoman Empire until World War I.
Don't count Vlad out just yet. So the Sultan would send 2 envoys as a bait, basically to ambush, and Vlad got wind of this and instead ambushed the envoys. And one of the first historic use of handguns.
What?
Wait a second. When were guns invented?
So was it I'm guessing it was a tiny muskety type of situation.
I don't know what type of capacity a handgun is described as or what, but That's what I have found. He impaled them and then disguised himself and his men in the Turkish uniforms.
Hand cannon, the special weapon of Vlad the Impaler. The hand cannon is pretty large. It looks like it's like 3.5 feet, perhaps.
Oh, it's huge.
Okay.
Yeah, she's big.
So they ambushed the envoy with that.
That's not impaling. They're very tiny bullet impaling.
Oh, like when I say impale, I mean he killed them. He always impales them on pikes, leaves them there.
Oh, Vlad. Laugh track.
He then moved to the nearest fortress under the Ottoman Empire and ordered the gates to be open. Because they're all in Turkish uniforms, so they ordered the gates to be opened by the men, and they thought they were. So they opened the gates. He would slaughter the defense, impale more people, and destroy the fortress completely. Crazy, crazy. So, okay, in 1462, he would go on to split his troops, Vlad the Impaler, and invade neighboring Bulgaria. As if he didn't have enough going on with the Transylvanian Saxons and within his own empire, and now the Ottoman Empire, he is going to go invade Bulgaria.
Bro, just take a nap.
He rounds up Turks, he rounds up Turkish supporters, he captures them, and he impales them.
Okay, so what are his motives at this point? I understood the motives with his dad and his brother.
Do you know what royalty is?
But it doesn't seem like he's doing anything fun. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like you would conquer things to have fun and, like, hold court and have fancy parties.
I think it was the point of which he achieved something and got his revenge and got the seat of power. And then here comes the largest empire in the world to be like, to send you an order to basically bow to me. That's your chance to be like, oh, well, if he's ordering me to bow to him, he's scared of me.
Yeah.
This is fair. The one opportunity that we can take out a giant empire.
Spoilers, I don't think he succeeds on that front. And I'm guessing he's, like, eating well and having a lot of sex in between all the staff.
Yeah, but, like, why are we never talking about that stuff?
Because a lot of that is the rape, too.
Why do you gotta bring me down, Chip? God.
It's Game of Thrones. It's not a cheerful game.
You win or you die.
Yeah, this is basically like 1400 war, but with a lot of impaling. He would say that he killed over 23,000.
His dudes killed 23.
I don't think he did all that impaling. That was his guards.
That was just what he brought back to Wallachia and impaled. That's not counting those that were burned in their own homes. A force of 18,000, led by the Sultan's Grand Vizier, would be routed, and leaving only 8,000 to escape the battle.
Well,
of course, this outraged Mehmed, and at this point, Vlad's luck is running out.
Bum, bum, bum.
There are many different accounts by many different historians in which the size of the army that Mehmed personally led to Wallachia, but Mehmed requested about 150,000 men from all over the empire.
Just as for all these people.
What he received was around 300 to 400,000 men.
Fuck.
This is not counting the naval force that would go with them. Naturally, Vlad would begin to worry at this time.
I could only impale so much.
Maybe was getting a little scared and frightened. He would seek out the King of Hungary for aid.
Oh, who's the scared little bitch now?
When none came...
Bro, you have a bad habit of impaling. I don't really want to get involved.
Vlad conscripted women and able children to fight for him.
Oh, here we go again. Good for him for seeing the women can fight. Here we go. Equal opportunity murderer.
In total, historians and have found that he amassed an army about the 10th of the size of the Ottomans. Impressive at the time. Very impressive. But, I mean, how many were children? So, upon the day that the empire would strike, he would think of a crafty way to scare the Sultan back to his empire. He began by poisoning wells and destroying anything of use, and even sent infected men with the plague into their troops to spread the highly infectious disease at the time. So,
You're
little
messing
by
with
little,
the ecosystem with that well poisoning. Like, what do the frogs have to do with this?
little by little in his region, before they were coming to his fortress and castle, he would do everything he could to sabotage them and poison them and infect them.
It's actually wild how far back in history biological warfare goes. Like weaponizing smallpox and the plague and shit. It's actually nutty. Especially when you think about the fact that they didn't have a way to not catch these communicable diseases. They're
right.
Yeah.
bringing smallpox blankets or whatever, but their soldiers are the ones handling whatever material in the way that they're weaponizing it.
Totally. Obviously, the Empire still, trudged on and went on. The first night that they camped outside, though, would turn the tides against this massive army. Vlad and his men would sneak in on the troops in the middle of the night, slaughtering all that they could. Vlad even tried to assassinate the Sultan personally, but missed and hit the Grand Vizier's tent.
Dangerous career, Grand Viziering.
It's a 3.5 hand cannon in the middle of the fucking night. Of course you're hitting the tent next to it. It's a little cloudy, but pretty much think that the Empire fought back or woke up to some degree, or they retreated in some way.
They striked back is what they did.
Fashion. I think after he missed, he probably retreated back. The Empire would continue to march on, obviously, to the fortified citadel. At this point, they're just camped outside. What they would be shocked to find, though, is that the gates were wide open. What they would stumble upon would be called as the Forest of the Impaled. Basically, he had strung up around 20,000 or more enemy soldiers of the Sultans, impaled and put on decoration. Just a graveyard.
Not the electric forest. Not good. Not electric.
This guy was smart and fucking crafty. I mean, I just have to give it to him. I mean, no accounts have been documented to like how the Sultan reacted or what became of it, but he definitely left Wallachia the next day.
Well,
at sunrise.
He's like, this is not worth the effort. I'm going to go back to being the biggest empire on Earth.
So Stephen III of Moldavia at this time would flee to Chile, and so would Vlad. And he would leave about 6,000 of his troops to try to hinder the march of the Sultan's army. But the Ottomans ended up defeating the Wallachians. So when the main Ottoman army left Wallachia, Vlad's brother Radu was with him. And
I thought that one was dead.
On the side, no, his youngest brother Radu was basically in with the Ottomans. So at this point, it had been, I'm sure, been a deal of like, soon as we overthrow, you can have the seat. So Radu sent messages to the Wallachians reminding that the Sultan could again invade their country, that he needed to give up his seat, basically. Vlad defeated Radu and his Ottoman allies in 2 battles during the following months, but more and more Wallachians would desert and go to Radu, basically, at this time. And he would withdraw into the Carpathian Mountains and hope that Matthias Corvinus, the king of Hungary, would help him get his throne back, basically. He was wrong. He did not want to wage war with the Ottoman Empire. He wanted to keep the peace, and captured Vlad and threw him in prison. Vlad would settle in a house in Pest after being released. So basically, he would go into prison for 14 years, starting in the city of Belgrade, but then was transferred to Visegrad. And then in 1475, Stephen III of Moldavia would go and send envoys to the king, asking him to send Vlad Wallachia against Basarab-Leota.
They must have been really worried about him being a martyr, because I just can't see any other reason that would be politically advantageous for them to keep him alive. It's
about throat and seat, because his brother didn't take the throne. One of the brothers of Vladislav did.
Oh, okay.
So a lot goes on, and basically he gets back onto the throne through Hungarian support, through Moldavian support, through Wallachian support, little by little, naturally. Like, it is so bizarre and a lot going on.
Back on that Iron Throne.
And then that's when Basarab-Leota returns to Wallachia with Ottoman support, and Vlad is killed in battle.
Finally.
What's the lifespan of a soldier at that time that he's actively fighting like this?
Ooh.
You would think that he would die young as fuck. And it'd be like, yeah, he did all these things. He conquered all these things. But yeah, he did that over the course of a few years. But then he ends up locked up and he comes out and is like, I'm still young and spry and can just do war.
1431, so he was 46.
Still 46 to be fighting battles at 46. The lifespan of kings was probably decent. The lifespan of a soldier, because he was actively fighting, has to be negligible.
I doubt he was actively fighting in all these battles. I'm thinking, certainly when there's a sultan, you kind of want that cred.
It sounds like he really liked impaling people, though, so I feel like he had to be at a lot of them.
But again, I want to know how many he personally impaled versus ordered impaled. Like, I don't think he lined them all up at that first the Red Wedding. It was like, and I stab you, and I stab you, and I stab you. Okay, when's the vampirism start?
So he died, finally.
He's a vampire now.
It's not really, it's the last name that is tied to what Bram Stoker creates.
He just takes the name because it's cool. Fair enough.
He was called Vlad Dracula. You know what I mean? He wasn't even called Dracula. It's just over time, because of the amount of bloodshed and the exaggerations and everything else that have gone over time, is that he was just obsessed with blood and death. And obviously fighting and killing and blood and death and impaling people.
Having written a nano or two, I too have corrupted a name just because it sounded cool.
That's fair.
So, do we hate Vlad the Impaler, or do we like Vlad the Impaler? Or do we respect Vlad the Impaler?
I mean, burn in hell, but...
He's the worst, right? But he's clever, and I do respect the cleverness and how smart he was, but I think we can say that about a lot of different... Intelligence isn't a sign of goodness.
And the tie, really, to him to Dracula is him being immortal and dodging death. He should have been murdered when he was a child. He was imprisoned 3 or 4 times. He sat on a throne 3 or 4 times. He's been in battle thousands of times. He's ran away. Like, traveled through mountains to get to a different city and king. And, I mean, he definitely escaped death.
What I thought you were going to say, like what I thought this would be, the evolution of Dracula, would be... He dodged death so many times that people couldn't believe that he was actually dead because he had survived these ridiculous odds.
Oh my god, have you heard about Vlad? He's on a cereal. It's a little bit.
Just a little.
Count
I have to count one back. Like, that's...
All right, so that is part 3 of our Blood series. Let me know if I missed something interesting or I misspoke on something, as we do here at the Deep Dark Truth.
Never even once.
Listen to Google Translate say a word a million times, and then it still just doesn't sound right.
Just falls into what it is.
Until next time, I'm Mo.
I'm Chip.
And I'm Mikey.
Don't impale people.
You just listened to the Deep Dark Truth Podcast. See you next time. And remember, your local cryptids want to meet you.